The babysitter who used baby monitor audio to catch a thief. Courage comes in all forms. When 17-year-old Maya Lopez took a babysitting job for the wealthy Henderson family, she thought her biggest challenge would be getting little Lily to sleep. But when a noise from the baby monitor echoed through the silent, sprawling mansion, she knew something was wrong. It wasn't a cry. It was the sound of a window sliding open downstairs. While the police were still minutes away, Maya did the one thing she wasn't supposed to do. She used the baby monitor's app to listen in. And what she heard next wasn't a thief. It was a plot to frame her for crime. Before we start, like this video and comment, courage, if you stand with Maya. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. There's a particular silence that exists in someone else's home late at night. It's not like the silence of your own bedroom, familiar and comforting in its emptiness. This silence is heavy, watchful. A thick velvet curtain hung between you and the intimate whispers of a life you're not part of. It's a silence that echoes with the ghosts of conversations you haven't heard, of footsteps that aren't yours, of secrets nestled in the plush furniture and locked drawers. For 17-year-old Maya Lopez, that silence was a tangible presence in the Henderson mansion, a sprawling monument to old money and new art that sat perched on a hill overlooking the city, its windows like dark, unblinking eyes. Her job that night was simple, a line item on a contract of unspoken rules. Keep the baby asleep, don't touch anything, don't wander, and wait for the parents to return from their black tie gala. The pay was exceptional, enough to cover a semester's textbooks and then some. It was a quiet, almost boring way to earn money for a college future that felt both dazzlingly close and impossibly far away. But as she sat on the oversized, cream-colored sofa in the living room, a single lamp casting a small island of light in the vast sea of the open-plan first floor, Maya was beginning to understand that silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a canvas. And that night, the baby monitor on the coffee table was about to become her brush, painting a picture of a truth so terrifying and complex it would rewrite the definition of her own courage. Maya's world had always been one of meticulous order and quiet aspiration. A high school senior with a sharp analytical mind that thrived in the structured chaos of advanced physics and computer science, she approached life like a complex equation to be solved. Babysitting, to her, was not a mindless chore but a fascinating study in responsibility, a real-world application of patience and logistics. The Hendersons' home was a fortress of curated luxury, a museum where every piece of art had a provenance, and every rug was worth more than her family's car. But where others might see only intimidating opulence, Maya saw an intricate puzzle. In the 3 times she'd worked there, she had already cataloged its quirks. The third stair from the top that groaned like a sigh under pressure, the specific sequence of buttons to coax the smart lighting into a soft, ambient glow without triggering the harsh overheads, the low, consistent hum of the Sub-Zero refrigerator that served as the house's steady heartbeat. She was an observer, a quiet ghost in other people's lives, and that suited her just fine. Her own fingerprint smudge phone was placed carefully on a ceramic coaster, a small gesture of respect for a world that wasn't hers. Her world was small, predictable, and safe, a carefully managed ecosystem of school, work, and dreams. She relished the predictability, until, as it always does, the predictability shattered. The injustice began not with a bang, not with the shattering of glass or the blare of an alarm, but with a whisper, a soft, almost imperceptible scrape that hissed through the speaker of the baby monitor. It was a foreign sound, an arrhythmia in the house's steady hum. It wasn't Lily. The baby's sounds were soft, rhythmic. The rustle of a sleep sack, a tiny sigh, the gentle suck of a pacifier. This was a different frequency altogether, a heavier, more deliberate sound. It was the sound of a window sliding open, a clean, well-maintained track giving way under pressure from the outside. A cold wave of adrenaline washed over her, so sudden and violent it felt like a physical blow. Her heart, a moment ago beating a calm, steady rhythm, now hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The book she'd been reading slipped from her nerveless fingers and thudded softly onto the thick rug. For a long, paralyzing second, she just sat there frozen, her ears straining against the oppressive silence, hoping, praying she'd imagined it. The silence rushed back in, thicker and more menacing than before. It was a waiting silence. And then it came again. A faint thud. A footstep on the polished hardwood floor downstairs. Her mind, usually so precise, began to spin out terrifying scenarios. Her first instinct, drilled into her by a lifetime of crime shows and parental warnings, was to call for help. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone, the cool glass feeling alien in her sweaty palm. She dialed 911, her fingers slipping on the screen. She pressed the phone to her ear, the ringtone echoing like a death knell in the quiet room. When the dispatcher answered, her own voice sounded thin and reedy, a hushed tremor that she barely recognized. 911, what is your emergency? A calm, bored female voice asked. Hi, Maya whispered, as if speaking too loud would make the presence downstairs real. I'm babysitting at 1414 Crestview Drive, the Henderson house. I think I heard someone break in. A window opening, downstairs. There was a pause, the clicking of a keyboard. Okay, honey, we'll send a car to do a drive-by when one is available. It's a big, old house like that. It's probably just a settling noise. You know, the pipes or the wind. The patronizing tone was a slap. Honey, it was a word that diminished her, that filed her terror away in a drawer labeled hysterical teenager. No, Maya insisted, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. It wasn't the house. It was distinct. A window, and then a footstep. We had calls from that area before. The dispatcher said, her voice a model of practiced, infuriating calm. It's usually nothing. Just stay where you are, lock the door if you're scared, and we'll have an officer check it out. It might be a while. The click of the call disconnecting was the loudest sound yet. It was the sound of the system failing her. She was being managed, placated, her very real fear dismissed as an overactive imagination. She was utterly alone in this silent, sprawling mansion with a sleeping infant and an unknown, trespassing presence below. The weight of her responsibility for Lily pressed down on her, a physical weight on her chest. She couldn't just wait. She couldn't hide. The system wasn't coming. She was on her own. The spark of defiance and salvation came from a small, blinking green light on the base of the baby monitor. It was a device she considered little more than an auditory tether to the nursery. A high-end model, it came with a companion app, Babysitter Pro. She downloaded it and mostly ignored it, using only the basic audio function. Now, she fumbled for her phone and opened the app. The interface was sleek and blue. There were options for video, temperature reading, lullaby playback, and a large button with a microphone icon, two-way talk. A idea, wild and desperate, began to form. It wasn't just for cooing to a fussy infant. It was a microphone, a remotely activated, sensitive microphone placed in the heart of the house. With shaking fingers, she tapped the audio feed from the nursery monitor. She muted the microphone on her end, ensuring not a sound from her would leak through. Then, she turned the volume slider on her phone all the way to maximum. She pressed the phone to her ear, her entire body tensed, her breath held in her lungs until they burned. For a moment, there was only the amplified, oceanic sound of Lily's gentle breathing. Then a rustle, the sound of fabric against fabric, a low, muffled curse. Her blood ran cold. They were still there, and then voices. Two men whispering, their voices distorted and tinny through the small speaker, but clear enough to make out. The study, it's the room with the big oak door. The painting is hideous, you can't miss it. A bunch of red squiggles. Voice one was calm, instructional. A second voice, gruffer, replied, got it. And the code? You're sure? Positive. The wife's birthday, October 28th, 81. He's too sentimental to change it. A low, ugly chuckle followed. Perfect. And the sitter's prints are on the glass in the kitchen. The TV remote, the banister. She's the perfect fall guy. They'll think the quiet little Latina girl got greedy, saw her chance. Clean, simple. The world tilted. Maya's stomach lurched. This wasn't a random robbery. This was a meticulously planned setup. She was the target. Her own meticulousness, her carefulness not to make a mess, had ensured her fingerprints were on everything. The glass of water she'd been drinking from, the remote she'd used to turn on the news for 20 minutes, the banister she'd held on to while watching Mrs. Henderson leave. It was all evidence, being woven into a narrative where she was a culprit. A surge of cold, pure terror was quickly overtaken by a hotter, sharper emotion: rage. They thought she was a pawn, a quiet, helpless girl who would take the fall. With fumbling fingers that felt thick and clumsy, she found the record button on the app and pressed it. A red began to pulse. She had to capture this. She had to prove it. The digital investigation that followed was a desperate, silent race against time, conducted from her knees on the plush carpet of the nursery floor. She had crept upstairs, needing to be near Lily to protect her. The phone was her only weapon, her only shield. She wasn't just passively recording anymore. She was actively hunting for proof. The Babysitter Pro app had a feature she'd never noticed: a real-time sound wave visualizer. As the men whispered downstairs, green lines jumped and danced on her screen. The waves were strongest, the lines leaping into sharp peaks when she pointed the phone's own microphone toward the floor. They were directly below her, in the study. Her mind, kicked into a high gear she'd only ever experienced during an exam, began connecting dots. The home's Wi-Fi password was on a cute magnet on the fridge. Lily Schaus 2023. Could she access the home security system? The control panel was downstairs. But maybe there was an app? She searched, but it was password protected. A secondary layer of security. A dead end. But the baby monitor, it was on the network. It was a device inside their digital fortress. In computer science class, they briefly touched on network security. Every device on a network has an IP address, a digital doorbell. If she could find a monitor's address, could she use it as a backdoor? She navigated into the app's advanced settings. There was device IP 192.168.1.15. It was a long shot, a Hail Mary pass in the dark. She opened a browser on her phone and typed in the address. A login screen for the monitor's firmware appeared, asking for an admin password she didn't have. Another wall. She was just a babysitter, not a hacker. The feeling of helplessness began to creep back in. Then, a new sound pierced the silence. Not from the monitor, from outside, the distinct crunch of gravel under tires, followed by the red and blue flicker police lights reflecting in the window panes. Relief, so potent it made her dizzy, washed over her. They had come. The dispatcher had listened after all. She heard the deep, authoritative knock on the front door. The whispers downstairs ceased abruptly. She heard frantic, hushed movement. They were scrambling. She waited, expecting to hear the booming voices of the police, the scuffle of an arrest. Instead, she heard the front door open and close. Heavy footsteps entered the foyer. Then, a voice she recognized. It was Detective Miller. She'd met him once before when he'd come over for a dinner party. A friend of Mr. Henderson's with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hello?" His voice echoed through the house. "Anyone home?" "Police. Up here," Maya called out, her voice cracking with relief. "I'm upstairs. In the nursery." His footsteps were heavy on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, not in full uniform but a detective's jacket over a polo shirt. His badge clipped to his belt. He held a powerful flashlight, its beam sweeping the room before landing on her. Crouched on the floor by the crib, he didn't look around for intruders. His eyes were fixed on her. "You okay, kid?" he asked, but his tone was all wrong. It was flat, devoid of warmth. His eyes were hard, assessing, not concerned. "You sure you didn't accidentally leave a door unlocked? Maybe let someone in? A friend, perhaps?" The words were a physical blow. The script. He was following the exact script the thieves had written. He saw a scared, young Latina girl, and he saw a culprit. A perfect, easy culprit. The two men downstairs weren't hiding from him. They were waiting for him. They were in this together. The relief she felt curdled into a cold, sickening dread. The corruption wasn't some abstract concept. It was standing in front of her, wearing a detective's badge and a look of cold expectation. He was there not to save her, but to seal her fate. The two thieves, hearing their cue, would be slipping out the back now, their part done, leaving her alone with this man, and a house full of evidence pointing her way. In that moment, something in Maya shifted. The fear was still there, a screaming animal in her chest, but was now caged by a colder, harder resolve. She couldn't fight him. She couldn't outrun him, but she had the truth. It was right there on her phone. She didn't yell. She didn't plead. She didn't try to explain. She simply looked at Detective Miller, her face a mask of calm she did not feel, and she moved her thumb across the screen of her phone. She found the audio file she recorded. She navigated to the two-way talk function, and she pressed play on speaker. The gruff voice from downstairs erupted into the quiet, tender space of the nursery, amplified to the high-quality monitor speaker on the dresser. Asterisk, the sitter's prints are on everything. She's a perfect fall guy. They'll think the quiet little Latina girl got greedy. Asterisk. The effect was instantaneous. Detective Miller's face underwent a terrifying transformation. The feigned concern evaporated, replaced first by shock, then by a dawning, panicked understanding. The color drained from his face. He wasn't looking at a scared kid anymore. He was looking at his own downfall, broadcast from a baby monitor. The trap he'd helped set had been sprung on the trappers. The audio kept playing, the whispered plot filling the room, an undeniable testament to his corruption. Outside, the sound of another car screeching to a halt, doors slamming. The backup the original dispatcher had sent, finally arriving. Miller was frozen, a statue of guilt caught in the beam of his own flashlight. The game was over. The resolution, when it finally came, was quiet and anticlimactic. The other officers, alerted by the damning audio now playing on a loop, quickly secured the scene. The two thieves, caught trying to flee through the backyard, were arrested. The corrupt family lawyer, who had masterminded the entire scheme, an inside job to steal a valuable bearer bond from the safe and blame it on the anonymous babysitter, was picked up at his home an hour later. Detective Miller was suspended on the spot, his career in ruins. The Hendersons returned from their gala to a scene of chaos and were horrified, their gratitude towards Maya immense and effusive. They offered her a large financial reward, a life-changing sum. Maya, with a wisdom beyond her years, accepted only enough to cover her first-year tuition, a gesture that earned their profound respect. A week later, when the shock had begun to fade into a steady, low hum of aftermath, her phone rang. The woman on the other end introduced herself as the head of user experience at a leading tech security firm that developed smart home devices, including baby monitors. "Maya, what you did wasn't just bravery," the woman said, her voice sharp and intelligent. "It was a masterclass in forensic audio analysis under extreme duress. You used a consumer device in a way we never intended, never anticipated. You exposed a critical flaw in our design philosophy. We build for convenience, not for defense." She offered Maya a paid internship. "We need thinkers like you," the woman said. "We need the perspective of someone who doesn't just see what a device is meant to do, but what it can do in the hands of someone fighting for their life." Maya accepted. She now spends her weekends not just babysitting, but working with engineers, reviewing apps and devices, asking the hard questions they never think to ask. She still babysits, but only for families she knows and trusts implicitly. And she always reads the entire manual for every device in the house before she agrees to stay. She learned a lesson that night that no classroom can ever teach. That courage isn't the absence of fear. It is the ability to act despite its deafening roar. It is about listening, truly listening, to the whispers in the silence and having the clarity to recognize which ones contain the poison and which ones contain the truth. And sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a badge. It's a blinking green light on a baby monitor and the quiet resolve of the person willing to press record. If you believe that heroes can be anyone, anywhere, like this video, subscribe to Digital Detective and share this story. Comment below, what would you have done in her situation? Stay tuned for our next story, the student who used social media geotags to find a missing hiker. Your next adventure is just a click away.